well-staffed and well-supported by our members and partners. Happy to be part of that. Our legacy success as an organization is very much aligned to strong governance and an effective and engaged board of directors. The board governed really well in 2018. Those weaker financial results throughout the year were a constant focus, and the accountabilities that the board held us to were discussed frequently. While we have achieved great success with strategic priorities that I will speak to in this report, the board is fully engaged in monitoring the actions required to improve the financial results in the near term. This is a focus with good outcomes from the 2018 strategic thinking meetings, and I'll talk about that briefly as well. My thanks to Chair Ross Lamont, to Vice Chair Ross Stone, and the other board members, Julie Garner, Ben Ryer, Ken Schaus, and Kong Rong Zi, for your support and sound leadership in 2018. The governance hierarchy has 4 committees, as reported earlier. Each has its own mandate and its own work plan, and these really complement the work and the effectiveness of the board. I want to personally thank our Corporate Secretary, Brian Hicks, who adds great value to the board and to the committees and each of their respective roles. A number of key priorities this year included review and refresh of employee benefits, CEO succession, board member onboarding, investment governance, audits and compliance, board and committee meeting format, board member remuneration, and strategic thinking. It was a busy and productive year in governance. So thank you again to the governance team and to all of our employees who support them in their important roles. The company's vision and mission are on display. I won't read them, but this is what, in terms of the vision, we aspire to be, and then we look at the mission statement as how we are going to achieve our vision. And these have been in place for a number of years, and we still rely on them as frequent guideposts. The next 2 slides will display our performance in 3 key performance areas that we compare ourselves to in terms of performance within the industry. There are currently 38 mutual insurance companies like Trillium in the province of Ontario, and most of those 38 companies freely share this data with each other and a lot more. But I wanted to talk about these 3 KPIs in terms of the last 3 years. Well, for those of you that have been coming each year, or most years, you will recall that growing aggressively or growing strategically has been a key focus in the last 5 years. I'll share some numbers shortly. But that is really reflected in terms of that first KPI, growth as a percentage. So in 2018, we grew 16.3%. The all-company average within the mutual community in Ontario grew by 9 points. The net loss ratio here, as Tracy reported, was 70.6%. For all companies, it was just under 70%. And the combined ratio, which really is a very reliable yardstick in terms of how a property and casualty insurer is doing, ours was 107.8, where the all-company average was 104. Last year, our growth was strong, very strong, again, 11.5% compared to 5.7. Our net loss ratio beat the all-company average at 59.3 versus 64.5, and that had a real positive impact on our combined ratio, which ended the year at 98.4 compared to 104.4. And when we look at 2016, or the 3rd year in this 3-year review, our growth was 9.8, and again, outpacing the all-company growth of 4.1. Our net loss ratio, 64%, slightly higher than the all-company average, and that had an adverse effect on our combined ratio, coming in at just under 104 compared to 99. So we have some work to do, but this is reflective of other successes that we've achieved. The 3-year average, when we look at those, and again, both our performance compared to the all-company performance, strongly outpaced the other mutuals in terms of growth. Our net loss ratio was about 2 points higher on an compared to all company on a 3-year average, and our combined ratio was approximately 1.5% higher. So the purpose of this is to reflect that the industry has gone through a cycle of high losses, high claims costs in each of the last 3 years. The other thing I wanted to mention on these slides is that even though we are achieving scale and exceeding the thresholds that we had set a number of years ago strategically, we and all of the other mutuals in Ontario individually are very volatile in terms of the industry that we're in and the trends and the patterns that are occurring within the industry. So I wanted to take a few minutes on that. As mentioned, we've been successful in achieving key strategic goals in the past number of years. At the beginning of 2014, our GPW was $38 million. So we've added 26 million in volume since then. Our goal back then was to be at 55 million by the end of 2018. And as reported earlier, we've now achieved just under 64 million, a huge success. In 2014, 37% of our $38 million in volume was defined as niche, or was our defined niche of farm and ag commercial business. 5 years later, this is 54%. And this was harder to achieve than growing the top line or the gross premiums written. And so we're really, really proud of how we've achieved this strategic goal as part of our entire goal package in the last 5 years. Great work by our team and by our broker community to support that. In the same period, we've added $11 million in surplus. So while we reflect a negative surplus position at the end of 2008, in the last 5 years, we've added a lot of surplus to the financial strength of the organization as well. We're dealing with reference to ROFI, which is the acronym for Real Ontario Farm Insurance. We are dealing with some of the best farm insurance brokers in Ontario, especially with those who are part of our ROFI program and who are co-investing in becoming better insurance counselors or better insurance consultants for their clients. And we imagine that one day, all of our members who are primary producers and relying on primary production as their key business enterprise will be supported and counseled or consulted by an ROFI broker. So thank you for those that are participating in that program. I want to talk a little bit about other successes, relationships for both of our members and our brokers. In 2018 in strategic thinking, we talked about just how important it is to continue to grow and to build our relationships with these two really, really important stakeholder groups. We talked about capital growth. And so while we're coming out of a period of strong focus on premium and volume growth, especially in the farm and ag commercial space, our near-term strategic priority will be to work on growing surplus and to recapitalize. And as we talked internally late last year, I don't know if there's any companies in our business that have mastered growing sales and growing surplus at the same time. It's cyclical, and we've got an amazing track record in both of those objectives over time, but not in concert. Growing our surplus through core business success is critical as a mutual insurer, and it's the only way that we can raise capital. We're continually learning and adapting, and this will serve us well in the future. We are intentionally increasing our dependence on farm ag commercial business. Just to echo that, we believe we are best in class, but there is still more work to be done. And this is hard work, but we've established a lot of traction and credibility in the last 5 years, and this will grow with the strategic focus that the organization has. And while it's declining line of business for us, we still underwrite a lot of personal lines business, and we need to be successful at it. The majority of the insurance industry has introduced significant changes in the rating for personal lines business. In 2018, we determined through analysis and another year of experience that our residential products are significantly underpriced. We started to address this with modest rate increases in 2019. Alignment with the industry means the introduction of more sophistication, complex rating tools within our portfolios to more accurately reflect the risk. And I do predict that will be a very successful initiative that will be rolled out in the next couple of years. We refer to that as risk-based pricing. Farm insurance re-engineered is the key strategic priority. Our appetite is to redesign the insurance experience for primary producers with more of a focus on preventing losses, in addition to helping farm families recover from an unwanted and unexpected event if and when that does happen. But there'll be more of a partnership bias in identifying risks and mitigating those in real time. And our philosophy is to offer our members the best coverage available. It's clear that changing weather patterns is going to impact both the availability and the affordability of insurance coverages in the future. Weather is becoming a greater more significant challenge for the industry, not just the industry, but we are very involved in that. For us, water and wind are the two greatest concerns, but we know that wildfires are now occurring in Ontario as well, and so we are obviously involved and exposed. And last but not least, something that we recognize is that our two most important investments are technology and talent. This is where scale matters. We are now able to invest in talent and technology that we could not in the past because we didn't have the capacity or we didn't have the scale. And in particular, both of those, the talent and the technology, are going to allow us to better understand the performance of our portfolios and the adequate and proper pricing in the risk-based pricing model. So I'm thrilled that we're at the point that we are at and that we've got the expanding talent pool that we have at Trillium going into the future. I want to recognize the importance of partnerships and how they directly impact success. And I'd like to amplify this. These are included in our mission statement, the fact that we rely on professional partners to help us be who we are. First of all, our brokers and agents. We deal with 19 farms in over 200 communities or retail points in the province of Ontario. Some of our leading and most supportive brokers are here today, and so I want to thank you and your colleagues and your peers who are not attending or participating for all of your support. Again, in 2018, we really do appreciate it. We deal with great professional vendors. The ones that we deal with on a regular basis and provide direct support in terms of operating the organization are firms like BDO, Bank of Montreal, Medor & Snyder, and Eckler. But we also deal with many others who help our members recover from that unplanned, unwanted event that I referred to earlier. And I often hear about the things that worked out really well in a claim. I'm always interested in hearing about where we could do better, and there's an explanation for that, but our team and our vendors do a really great job in this area. The industry is an area that we enjoy a really great relationship with our competing companies, both in the mutual space but also in the larger property and casualty community. And one of the things that I'm most proud about is the number of times our organization and our people are called upon and consulted for opinions and sort of how would you handle this situation and ideas. And so I think it reflects really well on our status and our position within the industry. The community is an area that we are really very involved in. It's part of our fabric. You're going to hear a little bit more about that later in terms of how we support from a philanthropic point of view. But we are really keenly interested in, obviously, the sustainability of rural Ontario, and we're really committed to that. I want to thank our members. Our membership has grown to approximately 24,000 policyholders. When I entered the business in 1982, one of the industry leaders who became a mentor said to me, and I quote, when I joined the industry, which would have been about 30 years earlier in the 1940s, when he joined the industry, they insured properties, and in the early 1980s, they insured people. And so I've thought about that a lot during my career, and I think that becomes even more important as organizations like ours and our industry goes into the future. And so it's important that we have a great relationship with our members, and I think on scale we do. Last but not least, I want to recognize our employees. And while we're not partners, we're really important stakeholders to the success of the organization. And as co-workers, we drive the engine. We are the engine. We drive the success. And I really wanted to include this important group as we reflect on the importance of partnerships and success. In his chair's remarks, Ross talked about some recognitions that we achieved in 2018, and we had some really proud moments last year, and I'd like to share 3 of them with you. At the local level, we were selected by the North Perth Chamber of Commerce as the Business Excellence Award recipient, for 2018. North Perth and Listowel business community are enjoying very strong growth, and it's really good to be part of that robust culture that we have within the community. At the national level, we were selected by the Insurance Business Canada as the employer of choice for 2018. This was an amazing honor for our organization and everyone involved, one that we are extremely proud of. We occasionally talk about punching above our weight class, and this was one of those moments in time where we really felt that we were punching above our weight class. The last is the Human Synergistics Culture of Excellence Award. So Human Synergistics is an international firm that helps organizations in a number of areas. They've been helping us develop and grow our culture for a number of years, and we are compared to many other organizations within their client portfolio. And so to achieve this recognition when we did was also a really proud moment for us. And as Ross mentioned earlier, culture is one of the things that makes us successful and makes this a really great place to be. So as you know, this is my last AGM as CEO. So what happened between last year and this year? Well, there were three things that occurred to me that sort of Father Time was marching on. One was the retirement of a second generation family member from the board of directors, whose father, who preceded him, joined the board after I joined Trillium Mutual. So I thought, okay, this is unusual, and I should be sort of observing what's happening here. The second one was when a board member joined us whose children are the same age as our grandchildren. So I thought, this is another indication. The third is in August I was at an industry event sitting at a table with some peers, and someone referred to me after I made a comment that I'm starting to sound like an elder statesman. So that was for me the tipping point. But I do want to, I just want to share a quote that I heard early this year on my drive to work. I think it's perfect and reflects all successful organizations, but certainly this one. And with the rich talent that we have, the very strong processes that we have in place, I'm really confident that the future at Trillium is going to sort of yield a lot of championships on the horizon. I want to recognize a few individuals who are responsible for getting me into the business. So first of all, Vern Ingalls. Vern's a retired GM at Formosa. Saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. So, pardon me, very thankful for that, Vern, and very thankful that you're with us today. So Vern sort of planted the seed and then introduced me to a board of directors, one of whom is here today, that took that leap of faith and took the risk of appointing this individual to get into a CEO succession plan fairly early. So thank you, Len Metcalf, a former board member here and at Formosa. And then I also want to thank another retiree, Roger Thorne. So Roger and I met probably on day one or day two of employment, but helped me become a really, really strong underwriter as a risk technician in the field. So those three members of the alumni are all very, very influential and very much a part of the start of what was a really good run. And then I have two coworkers that were also there on day one. So I want to thank Pauline Benninger and Rosemary Borrell for helping us get off to a good start. So with that, I want to thank you all for your support of me and your loyalty to Trillium over the last number of years. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you very much. I'm going to call on Mike Burley, our member of services, to start the next part of the reports.
Yeah, it just had to be my turn now, right? Well, good morning. Thank you for being here, both in person and online. I'll take a few minutes to talk about what we're sort of seeing in the future of farming. It's a number of different inputs from networking we've been doing over the last number of years. It's our goal here to continue to evolve our products and our services to compile complete insurance solutions for our members and especially our agricultural members. So I'm going to talk A little bit about the current state of agriculture right now in Canada and more importantly Ontario. And then in some big buckets, talk about science, technology, climate and disease, demographics and geography, and trade regulations and consumer preference. Oops. So the current state. Canada is the number 5 food producer in the world. We could be number 1. We're working towards number 1. We've got some geographic problems, some logistical problems, cross-commodity problems, some regulatory barriers. In Canada, food production is the number 2 employer. In Ontario, there are 77,700 Ontario farm jobs. Generates about $13 billion in annual sales a year. 11.5% of provincial employment is in food production. Agriculture is also incredibly diverse. OMAFRA tracks over 200 different commodities. Consumer choice and preference is also driving commodities within commodities, niche areas within a commodity, and that just is greater diversity. The March 2018 Senate report, How to Keep Farmland in the Hands of Canadian Farmers, Ted Huffman, who's a research scientist with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, said that between 1990 and 2010, about 3,000 hectares of cropland a year had been converted to urban development. The 1996 Ontario census identified 67,520 farms. By 2016, or 10 years later, that number had dropped to 49,600. Despite farms being fewer, however, productivity is increasing. Better science, better innovation, technology, and best-in-class practices. It's going to be seen by the graphic there. Over the period of 81 through 2016, grain, winter wheat, and soybean yields in Ontario have steadily risen. So let's turn our attention to the research and science that provides the ability to do more with less. Innovations in new plant varieties, seeds, genetics, and livestock, genetically modified organisms, biotechnology such as CRISPR and poultry. These continue to increase efficiencies and productivity. Doing more with less will be critically important as the population grows and as agriculture land becomes more scarce. At the primary producer level, such research and science generates the adoption and necessitates the adoption of technology. Primary food production also relies on technology and science in relation to climate change, societal pressure, and in many cases, regulation. So we turn our attention to technology adoption in agriculture. It's not only being driven by the need and desire to increase efficiencies, but as all other industries are right now facing, there's a significant lack of labor. So this is an OMAFRA graph taken from the 2016 census again. In the year prior, which would be 2015, 56.3% of farms reported using computers and laptops for farm management. 39.4% reported the use of smartphones and tablets for farm management. Automated steering, 13%. GPS technologies, 27.9%. Geographic information systems, 11%. Automated technologies for animal production, 13.1%. Bear in mind that that is 5 years old. 5 years later, we have things like autonomous vehicles, Internet of Things sensors, connectivity, big data and analytics, artificial intelligence. This particular photo is an IH case driverless tractor. There's no seat on this tractor. There's no cup holder on this tractor. Enter your geocode. This tractor will run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've got robotics, precision agriculture, cloud technology, drones, tag reading technology. Grab this photo from the Dairy Master website. It's the moo collar and the moo monitor. Brings herd management down to the individual animal level, continuous 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Tells about the animal's health, productivity, diet, fertility. This is an electrical monitoring device offered by PrevTech. It's designed specifically for agricultural buildings. And again, it is live monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It'll alarm at the slightest deviation, about a half amperage in electricity leakage, or if the temperature in the panel rises above 50 degrees Celsius. What's really neat about it is both the farmer and the farmer's electrician gets an immediate text message that there's been an anomaly. We'll turn our attention for a moment to climate change and disease. And observably, exponentially, we know that the severity and frequency of weather is climbing. It's different. Adapting to it requires different building code requirements. It requires different operating practices for farmers. It offers different growing seasons, necessitates different risk management plans. Also necessitates alternate energy sources and waste management. Regulatory changes as it relates to climate drives such things as weed management techniques, fertilizer and products. We're also seeing different diseases. This past year we had a significant breakout in mold in corn here in Ontario. Past years we've seen avian flu in poultry and PRRS in the swine market. Demographics and geography. And again, this is 2016 data. 29.7% of farm operators were women, up from 28.4% in the previous census. Again, 2016, 55.1% of farm operators were 55 years or older. On aggregate, back 5 years ago, 85.6% of farm operators were older than 35 years of age. According to Food Secure Canada, 50% of farmland is going to change hands over the next 10 years. A significant demographic shift in the ownership and operation of farms. Particular graphic up here comes from the ministry's website about the Northern Ontario focus, the Ontario government's Northern Ontario Agri-Food study. Started in 2011, it's a 25-year outlook for building social and economic growth in Northern Ontario. And this is the ministry's roadmap. And just a couple quotes from that document. Northern Ontario is home to well-established dairy, beef, grain, and oilseed, potato, fruit, and vegetable and rainbow trout industries. 2,237 farms generating $209 million in gross farm cash receipts. Approximately 884,000 acres of farmland in Northern Ontario with about 624,000 acres in production. A warming climate, new technologies, and a range of crops now can be grown in the north. You can see that here's an opportunity area where the convergence of science, technology, and climate change has created an area of farming that didn't previously exist. There's also an overlap, an interconnectivity between consumer preferences, the societal pressure, environmental sustainability, and global economic influences. These drive regulations affecting the agriculture industry and food production. Consumers have concerns about their food, preferences about their food. Global economic trade, if you look at this, what's happening right now in the canola area, these all represent challenges, but also opportunities. And consumers also have a lot of concern about animal welfare and not just the safety of the food, but the transparency of their food. Presently, there are stringent regulations on neonicotinoids, phosphorus loading, carbon taxes, and livestock transport. They're all driven by consumer preferences. Also, there's coming out recommendations and regulations phasing out conventional housing in poultry barns and mandating housing for sows. These are all, again, have to do with societal pressures. Example, Center for Food Integrity indicates that 3 of the top 5 overall life concerns expressed in a recent survey relate to food issues: the rising cost of food, keeping healthy food affordable, and the safety of food imports. From the same survey, other food concerns that are rising: food safety, humane treatment of farm animals, having enough food to feed Canadians, having enough food to feed people outside of Canada. And choice. People today have more choice in food than they've ever had before. Historically, it was from farm to fork. Now consumers are dictating what comes on their plate. The food and the food chain and the retailers face this pressure. Chains such as McDonald's and Loblaws are offering incentives for participation in the National Food Safety Program. Mafra have told us that one of the fastest growing commodities here in Ontario is goat. That's driven by health concerns for the milk and cultural preferences for the meat. And you've all heard it, antibiotic-free, genetically modified organisms, free range, organic, locally grown, locally sourced, gluten-free. Here's where I think, or something like this is where we're going to end up. And this is a conception. It's taken from a YouTube video from Dr. Verna Osborne, the University of Guelph. He did a TED Talk for Mission 2050. And he's a science and design lead for Mission 2050, which is a conceptual framework over the future of farming. This conception is multi-commodity. It involves poultry, dairy, and swine, self-contained with its own ecosystem, its own crop and feed supply, its own energy park, its own waste management systems, shelter belt, and integrated research facility. So why do we care here at Trillium about these sort of things? Well, science, technology, climate and disease, demographics and geography, trade, regulation, and consumer preference. We have to be aware of these things. We want to be ahead of these things. We want to know what's coming, because again, our desire is to design complete insurance solutions, not just to meet our members for today, but our members of the future. We exist for the sole benefit of our members. Thanks again for being with us today, and thanks for listening.
Okay, you've got me again, but I'll be brief. I know we've got lunch prepared for you. So completely different topic. I'm going to switch topics from Mike, and I'm going to talk about our business model being a mutual and what that means. So what is it? As a mutual, it's our focus to fulfill the needs of our members and our communities, unlike other insurance companies who focus on bottom line profits for their shareholders. It's at our core to maximize benefits, not profit. We're purpose-driven, values-based, and people-centered. What it means to be mutual. The first insurers were mutual companies created by farmers and property owners with a common interest. They were looking to share risk with a large group. Mutual companies provide a stable platform. They're not subject to short-term, sudden changes to meet quarterly stock performance metrics. The model provides a structure that's durable and compatible with the long-term nature of insurance needs. 60% of today's mutual companies are over 100 years old. The median age is 120 years old. We believe that's what sets us apart. In order to better understand if our belief is correct, we wanted to find out what our customers and our members thought. We learned that NAMIC, which is the North American Mutual Insurance Association, did a study on the difference between mutual insurance companies and stock insurance companies. In the US, 40% of the insurance buying public buys through a mutual. The defining difference, as I said, was the mutuals operate solely for the benefit of their policyholders and members. They don't have shareholders. In addition to being customers, mutual policyholders have distinct governance and other control rights in the company, much like what you exercise today by voting for the board and voting for our company auditors. Mutual insurance companies and policyholders share an alignment of interest that is unique without the potential of conflicting interests of shareholders who just need a return on investment. So the survey in 2018, they surveyed 1,000 people just to gauge their knowledge of the concept of mutuality. 49% had a positive viewpoint of what mutuality was. Then they described what a mutual company was, what it stood for, what the definition was, and that changed to 78%. So I call that the case to tell the story, how much that increased after they described what it really meant to be mutual. They surveyed attributes by importance, and it might be a little bit hard to read there, so I'll state what they are. Always settle claims fairly, have excellent customer service, work hard to keep prices stable, treat customers like numbers, not people, are strong financially, put profits ahead of customers, are socially responsible, employ the latest technology, are very innovative, and are great employees. So there's a couple up there that seem kind of funny. Treat customers like numbers, not people, and put profits ahead of customers. So after the definition, those two attributes that were negative actually decreased. So it was a positive thing to say that it's truly, truly valuable to be mutual. So with this information in hand, we wanted to do our own survey and find out what our customers thought about us being mutual. We talk about this all the time. We put it out on social media, every opportunity we get, we talk about the difference about being mutual. So we figured our members knew what that meant. And we just assumed they knew our story. But we found out they really didn't. They really didn't understand what it meant to be mutual. We talked to farm operators, some with Trillium policies and some without. The trends, widespread, people did not understand the definition of mutuality. Some themes came out. It was more economical, a better service, a team approach, tailored to customers, and shared profits. So those that did have some understanding were on the right track. We don't know why this is the best kept secret. We think it's great and it's a great story to tell, but we can't really get people to understand or want to understand what mutuality is. We think it could be in our actions, our humility, we quietly go about our business and we're collaborative, driven by those values and not just profit. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the mutual insurance business model to attempt to answer these three big questions. What is it? How big is it? And is it important to the economy? The view I'm going to look at is the view from the globe, because mutual and cooperative business is across the world, as well as North American and Canadian, the view from Ontario, and the view from Trillium. This is the global view. 31.6% of the global P&C marketplace is within the mutual and cooperative business cycle system. 8.9 trillion US dollars are in assets within this structure. The structure employs 1.16 million people and insures 922 million members. So is it important? With numbers like this, we feel yes. But more important, it's the focus of this international organization is to bring insurance to developing countries to allow for economic growth. Insurance is at the backbone of economies and allowing companies to grow or countries to grow. ICMIF is the International Corporation of Mutual and Insurance Companies, have a strategy called 555. It's their goal to bring microinsurance to 5 million underinsured, low-income families in 5 countries in 5 years to allow the economies to grow. This is not something a for-profit, shareholder-controlled company would consider. This is the global view of market share across the world. As a percentage of the total market, this is how many people purchase property and life insurance from a mutual cooperative business model. The color coding is where it's darker is there's more significant market share. In North America, almost 40%. This is the view of the 10 largest worldwide markets. The countries with the highest percentage of mutual and cooperative market share in order: France, Germany, Japan, USA, Italy, and Canada sitting at 19.4%. A little bit closer to home, I'm going to talk about the Ontario view. In the mid-1850s, 14 farmers got together and signed a promissory note. They agreed that they would reimburse each other in the case of a barn fire because nobody else would insure them. This is the humble beginnings of one of the world's strongest financial networks called the Ontario Mutuals. The first meeting of those Ontario Mutual companies was held in the late 1800s, 1882. In the mid-1950s, they were looking at alternative plans for reinsurance, which is basically insurance for insurance companies. This led to the formation of Farm Mutual Re in 1959. OMIA formed the Fire Mutual Guarantee Fund in 1975, and that put the wealth of the system behind every company and provided self-regulation ability with the government. Like those humble beginnings, in the early 1990s, 2 mutual CEOs had an idea to create a software company. So those 5 founding members developed software that is now shared amongst nearly 40 companies. This started as farmers helping each other, but it's grown into a network of companies coming together to help each other, but always rooted in those humble beginnings. I had the opportunity to meet with global and mutual cooperative leaders a couple of years ago in the US. I described the system that we have in Ontario, how we come together to buy our reinsurance by a company we jointly own, and described how we own our software company. And they were just fascinated by that. It's very, very unique. That's very different in Ontario. That doesn't happen across the world. And it was really interesting. Somebody I spoke to at break during that meeting said that's a very Canadian thing. You all get along so well. Mutual companies in Ontario have existed for more than 160 years. No stockholders, the interests of the policyholder members are served first. We're a group of approximately 40 companies across the province. Individually, we're small, but together we represent one of the strongest, most secure financial networks in the world. These companies grew in small towns and rural areas, and they're the backbone of the province of Ontario. Mutual insurance is woven into the fabric of the community, the spirit of coming together for the greater good. Premiums stay in the community, they employ neighbors, support the rural economy, and give back, investing in local projects. The benefits. We've talked a lot about this internally and strategically. It's really not about the ownership structure. Nobody really has a strong interest in understanding what the ownership structure is. We think it's what we do that's different. Member satisfaction is very, very high for Trillium. It was awesome to speak to John before the meeting about his experience with the claim out of the May 4th event. And yeah, that's a day we've certainly got circled on our calendar. But we ask our members after they've had any interaction with Trillium, whether it be a claims experience, a risk inspection where we're out providing advice and education, if they, because of their experience with us, would they recommend us? 98% say they would recommend us. So we think that's what we do differently because of our mutual structure. We provide the best products at a reasonable price. It's not always the cheapest price because we're very concerned about long-term sustainability, and reasonable price is very important. We provide that risk education and advice. We pay claims promptly, fairly, and equitably. We have our Roots Community Fund to give back. And the final piece, the role, the governance in the company that members have. That spirit of collaboration and reliance on others is similar to what the farmers in the 1800s did, and it continues to be the underlying value for which the system is where we operate today. So I hope I've helped explain what the model is and how grand and how big it is across the world. But it isn't only how big it is, it's how this segment is growing. In the past 10 years, this segment has grown by 30% globally. So people are more interested in insuring with a mutual or cooperative. The rest of the insurance market is growing by about 17%. Is it important? Well, we believe so. Consumer mindsets are shifting from mass production and that faceless corporation. We believe a model that is niche-focused, community-driven, focused on providing service, education, and advice. We think it's important, and we believe it sets us apart. We have learned that the public really doesn't understand our model and why we're different. So I hope I've been able to shed a little bit of light on our history, on this great structure around the globe and here at home. Because you're here today or joining virtually, you know and see the benefits. So we ask you to help tell this story. We've got a couple minutes. I'm going to just share a really quick, it's a 2-minute video about the structure.
When it comes to choosing an insurance company, Keith knows there's no shortage of companies in Ontario. But was there an organization that cared as much about his community as he did? Was there an opportunity to buy local for his insurance too? Keith asked his friends and neighbors until one of them mentioned mutual insurance, where the company is actually owned by the policyholders. That's when Keith went online to do some research and found out about the network of Ontario mutuals companies. A few important things really caught his eye. An Ontario mutuals company is local, but it's connected. Your neighborhood company is part of a network of more than 40 independent insurance companies across the province. They started in small towns and rural areas, serving farms back in the 1800s. Today, companies in the Ontario Mutuals Network offer virtually all types of insurance, from cars and motorcycles to farms and combines. Because every one of the 40 companies is connected, they're part of one of the most secure and trusted financial networks in the world. Ontario Mutuals is rooted in the community. All premiums stay in that community, supporting the local economy and bolstering local projects that matter to policyholders. A company that's part of Ontario Mutuals can provide the insurance Keith needs, including coverage for his farm, home, car, and ATV, even his cottage. They even have commercial coverage for businesses. Ontario Mutuals is people-centered. No big call centers and anonymous voices. Instead, Keith can feel confident that someone he knows and trusts will answer his questions. Find a mutual near you to learn more.
Okay, great video. Good morning and good afternoon. As a mutual, we value the relationships and partnerships that we foster within our communities. We understand the importance of giving back, and that is something that is ingrained within our workplace culture, and are proud to have a strong legacy of community support over many years. Roots is defined is the part of the plant which attaches it to the ground or to a support, conveying water and nourishment to the rest of the plant via numerous branches and fibers. Much like a plant relies on its roots for nourishment to thrive, a community relies upon the dedication and commitment of support to sustain into the future. We are motivated by our goal to ensure the sustainability of rural Ontario. We are committed to allotting 7.5% of our investment income each year to philanthropy. We are honored to have a presence giving back to the communities that trust us with protecting them in the time of need. I'm excited to share an overview of our philanthropy program at Trillium. Roots stands for recognizing our opportunity to support. The Roots Community Fund and Roots Council were established to provide an integrated approach to ensure that we are providing meaningful assistance to the communities that we live, work, and serve in. The Roots Council meets quarterly and recommends varying levels of support after engaging in a fulsome and objective review process of all application submissions. Trillium Roots Community Fund focuses on 5 areas, which include healthcare, recreation and wellness, emergency response, agriculture, and eco and sustainability. Pictured above are the members of the Roots Council: Margaret Jack, Robert Hargrave, Jackie Fraser, Carrie Robertson, Karen Galbraith, and Jennifer Isberleg. Members giving back to members. The following slides will showcase our contributions through Roots over the years and some specific highlights from 2018. In 2018, the Roots Community Fund has supported 32 organizations with a total funding of $162,000 for various capital projects in the 5 focus areas of, again, agriculture, healthcare, rec and wellness, emergency response, and eco-sustainability. This pie chart represents the funding of the $162,000 allocated by those categories. As I mentioned in an earlier slide, we are committed to allocating 7.5% of our investment income each year to philanthropy. The $162,000 for the Roots Community Fund represents 80% of the 7.5% of our investment income. Since its inception, the Roots Community Fund has supported 172 organizations with a total funding of $972,550. This graph shows the spend by category over the last 5 years. To complement our community giving program, Trillium has a volunteer program that aligns with our Roots categories. Every year, each employee and board member commits 1 day to community giving. Every year, the participation rate has been 100%. It is heartwarming to witness the enthusiastic community engagement. Additionally, we are partnered with many other community initiatives. So for example, we have 15 employees who are volunteer drivers with the VON Meals on Wheels program here in Listowel. I am pleased to be presenting some additional statistics of our 2018 efforts as an organization. As I stated in our last slide, our volunteer program is aligned with our Roots program, and this slide displays the allocation of the 560 volunteer hours within the categories of the Roots funding. This slide is representative of the 37 organizations that received those 560 volunteer hours from staff and board in 2018. And this map is a geographic representation of the span of our efforts throughout the province. The tentacles of the program have expanded significantly, and the reach that we have achieved is remarkable. It is always rewarding to look back on a volunteer year and reflect on how important our commitment to the communities that we live, work, and serve in. And in closing, thank you, our valued members, for your ongoing support. Mutuality is all about the greater good, and we seek to ensure that our philanthropy efforts are aligned with our business goal of community betterment. Much like the plant whose roots are deeply connected to the soil, our business is deeply rooted in the foundations of community support and corporate social responsibility. It has been a pleasure sharing a chapter of Trillium's story today, And we look forward to many years of serving our members and your communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam, Tracy, and Mike. So we're at that point in the meetings that it's open forum for questions or comments. It's shortly past 12. Lunch is ready, but that message wasn't to deter questions, sorry. We're happy to respond. This is a great opportunity. Yes, John.
No question, just a comment on last May 4th. And
Yes, for the benefit of those participating remotely, that would be great to use the mic. Thanks, Matt.
as far as claims go, from that lovely windstorm, mine's probably, my wife and I, ours is probably very small. But here's how a conversation went about 2 o'clock last May the 4th. I work in Harriston, I sell cemetery monuments, and I have a display out in the front yard, and it would take a tornado to move any of that stuff. So the wind wasn't really doing much that I could see out my front window, and I get a phone call from my wife, and it goes like this: "Honey, you gotta come home, the gazebo's in the front yard." How did it do that? Typical male question, wanting to know the how. Female answer: "It went over the roof." For those of you who haven't seen any of the photos that a couple of people were given by email here, I can leave them with you, Joe. Our gazebo, we live in the village on the east side of Listowel. We've been there 10 years. And we're all bungalows. And our gazebo, yes, it should have been bolted down, but who would think that it would fly over your friggin' house? It landed in the front yard. The pictures that I took, by the time I got home, it was lying in the driveway because it had kind of knocked over a large light standard. So some neighbors moved it onto the driveway. One of the neighbors, an elderly fellow across the street, said it provided him, watching it come over the house, provided him with the best entertainment he'd seen in a long time. But I've been in sales all my life, and I want to tell everybody here that if you know anything about the wow factor, that's what you need to aim for when you're serving customers. Because whatever product or service that you offer, it doesn't really matter. If you can offer the wow service, that means that you have your customers talking about you, not only talking about you, but also referring others to you. That's the wow. And I had wow service on this claim.
That's the claims team.
Are you in the claims department? I'm not even sure if I had claims people getting in touch with me. I learned that you had folks from almost every department rolling up their sleeves and getting the job done. And so I want to, in 1984, my wife and I had our first property claim. We were living in Kitchener, and we were with, I don't know, it might have been Zurich or some big company. And we had a lot of valuables taken. It took forever to get that claim settled and get paid. I got to tell you, I tell people about Trillium Mutual because that claim of ours was settled in no time. Well, I guess it's pretty obvious. You go around, you take a picture, and then the clickers driveway, and there's the gazebo. It actually went over the roof and didn't touch a single shingle. So I'm very proud to be a member of Trillium.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Two points you made that I'd like to respond to. One is when you have a claim, it's not a small claim. It's a big deal. And secondly, you referenced that everybody rolled up their sleeves and helped the claims team. That's the norm. And it's great that you experienced that as a member. So thank you for sharing. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. I'm going to ask our chair to share a few closing remarks. Thank you again for being here. Look forward to visiting over lunch.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you all for attending today. It's always great when we have to bring in more chairs, and obviously there are people here who are not here every other year, so we've got some new people out, and I hope that it was an enjoyable experience and that there was a little bit to learn from being here. So lunch will be ready. There isn't a particular order. You can go out. I presume go out that door and it'll be set up, and help yourself and come back in and eat at the tables here and take the time to visit and enjoy yourself. And if there's any questions that you have of any of the board members or any of the staff, we're all happy to talk to you. So thank you very much.